Okay.
At 6:58.
Are we on air when that's?
We are on air.
Okay, great.
Or then,
Great.
just text her.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for those of you who have joined us in person and those of you who are watching at home. I recognize that we are up against a Celtics playoff game at 7 o'clock. So anybody who's watching, I really extend my gratitude for you hanging in there for the next hour or so with us. This is a candidates forum for the Cumberland Town Council. I am Alyssa Tibbetts. I'm the town attorney, and I'm going to serve as the moderator of the panel this evening. And we have 3 candidates with us who are running for 2 at-large council seats to be elected during the June 14th, 2022 upcoming election. The forum or process for this evening's forum will be that I will be asking 6 questions of the candidates. They have not seen these questions and are not aware of them at this point. Each candidate will be provided an opportunity to make an opening statement and a closing statement, and they will be given 2 minutes for both the opening and the closing, as well as each answer that they provide to the questions. And we will go in a rotating order, so we'll start with opening statements to my right and down the panel, and then as we go through each question, I will shift that and we'll work our way back around. I am going to ask the questions of the first candidate. I'm happy to repeat them, but please let me know if you're not interested in me repeating the question again, and I will gladly do so. I will just remind everyone, this is not intended to be a debate, so we would ask that you respect one another's time to answer and not interrupt. This is really an informational forum for you to present your answers to some general topic questions. The time for your responses is being kept on the screen. You'll see that there, and from what I recall from last year, it's a pretty loud indicator at the end, so it's hard to miss, and I think you'll know when time is up. Please feel free to finish the sentence, but do please try to be respectful of the time and fairness to all for answering the questions. So with that, if there are no questions as to format and process, we will begin to my right with Mike Eads and opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and welcome to other members of the town and to the residents of Cumberland here tonight and those watching at home. My name is Mike Eads. I'm seeking your support for re-election to the Cumberland Town Council. First, a little bit about me and why I'm seeking re-election. I'm a lifelong resident of Cumberland, grew up on Pinewood Drive before my parents decided to move to the country down to Tuttle Road. My wife Jennifer and I live on Eads Road. We've raised our 2 sons there. My youngest, who is serving in the military, proud Greeley graduate. I spent my entire life in the field of public safety and public service. I retired as a first responder in 2019. I've been a board member of several charities and several service organizations throughout Maine, and currently work as the executive director of Maine's largest public safety union. I've served this town for the past 19 years, the last 9 on the council. And to me, it's always been about giving back and representing the town's citizens and to be a voice of reason when it comes to spending your hard-earned tax money. I'm very proud of what we've achieved here over my past 9 years in the council, land preservation being one of them. We purchased and preserved the Broadcoat Reserve, Nice Pond, Greeley Wood, and 3 additional parcels of land to Ryan's Forest. At the same time, our infrastructure needed attention as well, including a new fire station, a ladder truck, brush dump, renovations to both Town Hall and the West Cumberland community, natural gas, upgrades to our water and sewer lines. We did this while all minimizing the tax impact on the town side to our property owners. In closing, I'm asking you for your vote and support because there's a lot of work to be done. I'm with this town for the long haul, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to my left with Brian Kilgallen.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Kilgallen. I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to school college, in Rhode Island, where I met my wife, Diana. Di is a Bath native, and once we got married, we realized that we wanted to start our family in Maine. 11 years ago, we moved to Portland. 6 years ago, we found the perfect neighborhood for our two boys, Liam, age 10, 8 and 7, and 3/4. He want me to make sure of that. And our giant Bernese Mountain Dog, we moved to Cumberland. Immediately, we fell in love with our neighborhood, our home, and all the wonderful things that Cumberland has to offer. But more than that, we found that we love the people here most. I decided to run for town council because I want to be a part of the evolution of this town. I don't have an agenda, but I do believe I have the necessary skills and temperament to help lead this town. By trade, I'm a developer of affordable housing. I work for a local nonprofit based in Portland. I've visited with many municipalities in the state, and I see that Cumberland is in a very similar position to many other towns, finding its way through an ever-changing climate. With these changes come a great deal of opportunity that Cumberland can capitalize. Opportunities where we engage with affordable housing developers to increase the supply of affordable housing in our town, manage the growth to allow more small, stable, resilient small business, find creative ways to ensure our seniors can age in place while still providing services and maintaining our quality of life, and ensuring that we have the best schools in the state for years to come. These are just some of the things that light my fire, and I want to make me want to be your town councilor. I'm excited for the discussion here tonight, and I hope by the end of tonight you'll decide to cast your vote for me, Brian Kilgallen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And Bob Vail.
Okay, I have an agenda. And I'm not going to tell you what I've done because you probably don't have any interest in it any more than my kids do. However, I'm going to tell you what I want to do, and it really doesn't matter whether I'm elected as a town councilor or whether I'm serving a private citizen. My agenda really isn't going to change. It's an opportunity for me to finish my time out on this earth in a constructive, meaningful manner. I'm concerned about the welfare of this community. I'm concerned about the climate change, how we can affect change. It's time for all of us to put aside those, and say, well, what can I do? What can I do? It's what we're going to do, and we've got to do things. We have a challenge with affordable housing. We have a challenge with our elderly population. We have a challenge with taxes. We all know that property taxes are just going up, and it's the one thing that you cannot get away from. You can retire and you don't pay any income tax because you don't have any income. But those folks who have worked a lifetime to invest in a home and find that their property tax is going up every year. So that's a challenge that I'm going to continue to work on. I'm going to continue to have a dialogue with the schools. We need to have a close working relationship with them. I want to continue to have a close working relationship with the town of North Yarmouth, because in a lot of respects, we're joined at the hip, and so we have to make sure that everything we do is collaborative. And frankly, that goes to Falmouth and Yarmouth also. We need to do a lot more regionalized planning, and my time is running out. So anyways, I'll tell you more later.
Great. Thank you. Question 1, we're going to start with Brian, and the topic of the question is generally taxes. The question is, do you believe that the homeowners in Cumberland are burdened by property taxes? And if so, how would you as a town councilor address that?
Yeah, I think this is the time of year where we all look around and say that we need to grow our commercial pace in order to relieve the property tax burden of our residents, and I think that's accurate. However, I think that discussion needs to change to simply circling different parts on a map to engaging with local developers, small business, and encouraging the type of environment where businesses can be successful. I think that starts with looking at our TIF rules and regulations, understanding our zoning better to allow for a more a form-based code rather than simply trying to ask developers to fit something into our boxes. I think it's important that we reach out and we try to grow and be a part of that. We need to engage in that community. We need to understand what they need in order to be successful. And I think that is the biggest way to get taxes to go down. I think that our taxes, we get a tremendous amount of value in it. There's services that exist in this town that simply wouldn't exist without it. And not only that, we have one of the absolute best school system in our state, which of course provides for our future and our children, but also provides for our property values to be as high as they are. People want to come to Cumberland because of that, and in order to support that, it costs money.
Thank you. Bob, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, short attention span over
No,
here.
absolutely. The question is, do you believe that homeowners in Cumberland are burdened by property taxes? And if so, how would you, as a town councilor, address that?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is that, as Brian said, we get a lot of value for our taxes here. If you look at the municipal tax, it's a very small amount of money for the value that we provide for this community and the citizens. The longer answer is that as long as you're working, you know, people buy the homes that they can afford. And counterpoint with the value, if you're planning on staying in your home for a life cycle, you really don't care what that value is. Because you're not going to, your heirs are going to be the ones that take advantage of that, and you know, not so much. So we need to address that. It's a problem that needs to be addressed on the state level, and so the town council needs to work with the legislature and provide property tax relief. Some other states, I think if California has Prop 13 or something like that, where at a certain point your value is locked in. We're trying to take a path of providing for that the increases would be set aside until the time of death or sale of property or something like that. But I believe we need to do more because we're just the incremental increases. Once you reach retirement age, it's burdensome. I'll play politics for the last 24 seconds. The the platform of the Republican Party to do away with income taxes is completely short-sighted and fails to take into any account what that does to property tax. And so it really is going in just the opposite direction. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And Mike, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, this is an easy answer for me. Absolutely, taxes are a burden on everyone. Whether you own a $3 million home on the Forth side or the average home in Cumberland of $600,000, property taxes are a burden. They're especially a burden on our senior citizens. 1 year ago, I started an initiative here on the council. I brought a plan to help our senior citizens. We've been talking and talking for years about we need to help them. Well, it was time to step up. So I brought a concept of how can we help and keep our seniors in their homes so they don't have to spend all their Social Security money or their whatever they've socked away for retirement on taxes. So we have started, looking at, and we have created, and we're right now in the final stages of looking at a tax deferral program for our seniors. That goes along with our tax relief program and other programs that we have in town to help our seniors. So Cumberland's walking the walk when it comes to helping our senior citizens. This new program, once we finally roll it out, will give them an extra choice. But I'm like everybody else. I get my tax bill and I hold it and just, oh boy, here we go again. But as it's been mentioned, we have a lot of value for what we provide. We have great public services, great public safety. Our school system's wonderful. And there's a reason that every place in Cumberland, a home is desirable, and why people are overbidding for these homes, because people want to live here for what we provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. To question 2, we will start with Bob. And the topic of the question is the school district. The question is, given that Cumberland is part of a school administrative district, what do you believe the town council's role in public education should be, and how would you work to support that?
The, I spent 15 years on the school board, so I'm a little familiar with how that goes. You know, that's a hard question. There has to be an involvement. There has to be a give and take. There has to be planning by the two communities and the school board, particularly when there's initiatives going forward. And a $60, $70 million school in North Yarmouth has a tremendous impact on the taxpayer. And so how that rolls out, how that's paid for, you know, there's ways to operate so that the impacts are minimized, and you plan for that, say, all right, I'm not buying that fire truck this year because that's going to be the high year of the school bond, and vice versa. The school has to work with the communities to find ways to balance that out. I think that the other way is value engineering. You know, with a lot of these projects, we're trying to have a solar field. I think that's going to be a good collaborative process and frankly, a good outcome. But it's, you know, you want good schools, and good schools cost money, but good schools shouldn't put us all in the poorhouse either. So I think one of the things that we need to encourage is the collaboration with our other communities. And, you know, you can't offer every bit of programming in, say, Cumberland. You might have to send your kids down to Falmouth or Yarmouth to take advantage of some of those other programs, and they can send some kids here. So I think there's, you know, we need to look at a macro solution to that.
Thank you. We turn to Mike. Would you like
We are hooked at the hip with the school. And we're hooked at the hip with North Yarmouth. And there has to been, and there is a collaboration with both entities plus us. Bob was talking about the solar field. That was at the suggestion of the town council. The land they found in North Yarmouth was at the suggestion of the town council. You know, we had worked on various different models of where we could put the school, and could we put it here, could it there? It's not just as easy as the school saying, we just want it here. Everybody has to work together. And we know that there's a separation. The school takes 70%, 70 cents out of every tax dollar goes to the school. We have 30%. But we have to keep an open line of communication, because that's how, working with them is how we keep the taxes minimized to the best we can, even though we don't have control over their budget. But it's, if they fail, we fail. If we fail, they fail. So I like the fact that we're meeting with the school board on a regular basis. Our manager has open communication with the school superintendent, and we're not afraid to make suggestions and vice versa without stepping on anybody's toes. It's a good partnership, and it works.
Great, thank you, Mike. Brian, would you like me to repeat the question?
Good, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Given that Cumberland is part of a school administrative district, what do you believe the town council's role in public education should be, and how would you work to support that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And, you know, probably the best example that's in place now is the fact that we do need a new school in this town. Drive by, or either North Yarmouth or our town. Drive by Mabel Wilson and you see that there's nearly more portables than there is actual school buildings. I think it's the role of the council in order to balance the obligations that we have. One is first to our students and parents to make sure that we're educating our kids to the best possible of our abilities. Second is we have to balance our obligations to our seniors to allow them to age in place with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And I think that we have to balance that budget of if we are going to go ahead with that new school, that we find a way to work with our capital budget to better justify those expenses. And then again, I think it's less about taking things away and finding different streams of revenue in order to support all the things that we need to do. And again, that gets back to growing our commercial base and relieving the property tax burden from our homeowners. But as a parent, I think but as a person in this town who lives here, my job is to support that in order to provide the best possible education, the best possible opportunity for our kids, and that does go hand in hand. Our property values are supported by the fact that we have the best school system in the state, and we need to maintain that in order to maintain all of our property values.
Thank you. The third question, we'll start with Mike, and the topic of this question is affordable housing. The state legislature recently enacted a new law intended to provide more opportunities for affordable housing in Maine. Do you believe the town should increase opportunities for affordable housing? And if so, how would you as a town councilor address that?
Well, I think it's a misnomer in this town to think that we haven't done anything as far as affordable housing. We have had several affordable housing projects. The problem we face is it's affordable the first time. It's not affordable the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time that the house is sold. We looked at whether it's Crossing Brooks, or up Route 100, or down on Route 1, and we narrowed the lot size to bring more houses in. Well, guess what? Those affordable houses are now going for $500,000 and $600,000. So we have to create a way to somehow keep those prices down. The new law that was just passed, I requested from the manager and from the chairman that we bring in our local state rep to explain to us why this new law was passed, what our obligations are under it, because we don't know. The thing just passed. We have to know what to expect. The other thing we face is, while, yeah, it would be nice for us to build more houses and to have small lots and more affordable, we've got to keep the rural character. And that's if you look at all our comp plans and all the surveys that we have put out, the number one thing is we want to keep the rural character of Cumberland. And if you're driving up Greeley Road or Tuttle Road and you like the farms because it gives that rural feeling, are you going to like it when there's 100 lots in there, a house on top of a house on top of a house? So we've got a task ahead of us. We've got to work with our state rep on trying to figure out where we're headed under this new law, and what we can do and what we can't do.
Thank you. Brian, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I can handle it.
Sure, great, go ahead.
It may sound a bit self-serving. I spoke in my introduction about how I'm a developer of affordable housing. But to answer your question directly, does Cumberland need more affordable housing, and should we pursue it? 100% yes. There are varying different types of affordable housing, and unfortunately, it falls into this great umbrella about what that actually means. If we're talking about affordable housing as just being smaller single-family homes that are divided up into lots, those are never going to be the most affordable housing. To fix the long-term affordability, we simply add deed restrictions, which is a typical component of either low-income housing tax credits or various other bond programs that are available to us. I think that we have a significant need for more housing in this community. And starting with affordable housing is a perfect way to do that, where we can engage with local developers and provide a willing participant into that process. And it starts really with us looking at our zoning to see how we can both maintain the rural character of our town, but increase density where it's appropriate, and build a mixed-use development that has small business areas on the first floor with housing above it. Those are the typical ways that houses were constructed, or towns were built in this country from its existence. And to think that we would somehow lose our rural character by building something that was adopted in the early 1800s, I would disagree with personally. I know it's possible to do it. I've done it before, and I think it would be a huge benefit for us as a community.
Thank you. And Bob, would you like me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
So I agree with both of you, and I disagree with both of you. I think the one thing we should understand is that in the last decade, Cumberland had the highest rate of growth in any community in Cumberland County. So we are seeing a push to develop our community. And yeah, rural characters is front and foremost one of the important things that I like about living here, and a lot of other people do too. So it's a challenge, and it's a challenge that, as Brian said, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like Cumberland Crossing. It doesn't look like some of our other projects. Affordable housing is really a multi-story building, and it may not be home ownership. It may be a rental unit that it's affordable for a young family to come in and educate their kids. So it's trying to compare a car that you buy today with a car that was produced 25, 30 years ago. They don't look the same, they don't operate the same, and the expectations are much different. So if we're going to tackle affordable housing, it's going to look different than anything else in this community. And as Brian said, the appropriate place for it, that's going to be the challenge, is where we place these units. But it is, it's doable, it's just going to be different.
Great, thank you. Question 4, we will start with Brian, and the topic of this question is the town's ordinances generally and its governing documents. The question is, the town council serves as the legislative body of the town of Cumberland. Do you believe any of the town's current ordinances or governing documents, such as the comprehensive plan or town charter, should be updated or revised in any way to better serve the community?
Yes, I think they should constantly be revised. I can't tell you how many comp plans I've run from 2010 and beyond that are still in existence or that haven't been picked up since 2010 or 2011. I think they're great guides, but I think they need to work with the current times. When we look at an environment such as this, where we're seeing inflation that's so high, that wasn't predicted to be part of our comp plan when we last wrote it. I think ordinances and laws should constantly be looked at. If we don't need a regulation, it shouldn't be there. We shouldn't make things more difficult. We should make things easier. Government should be a way for people to thrive, not simply just survive. We should take a look at our ordinance and make sure that they mean what we want them to mean, so that nobody is left behind and everybody is included. That should be a principle number one anytime we write something or every time we enact it. So absolutely, they should be looked at. Absolutely, they should be continually updated and understood so that they better fit our time and understanding.
Thank you. Bob?
I'm looking forward to seeing the results of the survey. I think that's a good point of a good place to take off with making the changes that may or may not be needed. And I won't say that what we have before us right now is outdated or out of place, but certainly there's you can always do better. You can always change. It's not. I think the one thing that people do when they move into the community, there's an expectation of stability, and so any changes that we're going to make, particularly in land use, have to be well thought out and have to be well supported. The other things that we might do that are a little bit more broad-reaching is make sure that we can align ourselves with the communities that surround us. There's no sense saying you've got restrictive zoning and the towns on either side of you have something different, so that you're missing out on commercial development. And on the other hand, you don't want everything to look like a marijuana field. So there's a balance there.
Thank you. And Mike?
If you watched last Monday's town council meeting, it was I that made the suggestion that while we're looking at one particular charter change, we look at the whole charter, and we make the changes that we can make. It's not as easy as just saying the council's gonna vote on a charter change. It actually has to go to the voters. It will go to, what we change will go to the voters in November. As far as the ordinance, I think we do a pretty good job of adapting. We just changed the zoning down off of Route 9 to allow the new brewery, which we're all excited about, coming in. We also, in doing that, working in partnership with a developer, are preserving 54 more acres of open space in Cumberland. More room, more space for our residents to enjoy. I was one of the people on the, I'm on the ordinance committee, so we're dealing with new ordinance. We just drew up the marijuana ordinance, because we didn't want this thing just to be the green highway, either Route 100 or Route 1. We've limited the amount, but we still conform to state statute by allowing them in our town. But it's all, and a lot of this done is for protection of our residents. Look, we have regulated everything from chickens to houses to you name it. But we try to find a clear solution that benefits the community as a whole, and I think we've done a pretty good job on it.
Thank you. Question 5, we'll start with Bob, and the topic of this question is climate change. The town of Cumberland has been recognized as a leader in climate action planning. Do you support those efforts, and what additional steps would you take as a councilor to advance them?
I don't know about us being a leader, but we had a presentation by the Climate Action Committee on Monday night, and it was just a great document, and it just really sent a challenge to the whole community of what we can do. It's really an important document. It laid out some initiatives, and I'm 100% behind supporting that. It's and you know we need to go to a greener presentation. I like the idea of electric cars. I like the idea of solar power. Heat pumps are most efficient when they're coming off a green grid. It's not so much when you have a heat pump that's being supported by fossil fuel plants. The steps that we can take from very small to just turning our lights off, to putting in energy efficient light bulbs in our house, to changing out old appliances. The new washing machines spin up to a lot higher speed to bring the water out, so that the dryer use is a lot shorter time. You know, better that, hang your clothes out on the clothesline. So the opportunities for us to protect and promote green environmental use is never-ending. And you can't help but say that part of that has to come with agriculture too. We need to grow more of our food here at home and stop importing it from across the country, and you know, things like that. There's opportunities there to learn from.
Thank you. And Mike?
I was proud last Monday to vote in support of the new Climate Action Committee plan. It's comprehensive, far-reaching. There's a lot of suggestions, a lot of great suggestions, and I look forward to working with them over the next few years in implementing a number of those things. And a lot of them weren't even heavy lifting stuff, but this town's done a lot. We've, in the time that I've been on the council, we put the solar field in over the landfill. It was a vacant piece of property not doing anything. We put that in, and now that all the electricity that the towns use, we are now net neutral. That was a big thing for us to do. And the town is going to own that solar field in a few years. We've asked, that's why we pushed for the school to do the same thing. We changed our streetlights around. We went to a more efficient bulb, and that wasn't cheap either, but it needed to be done. But we've done a lot with the climate in this town, and we get the PD's using an electric car, and that won't be the last one that we see. So I'm very proud of this council taking the lead on a number of things. We also do a lot to preserve what we have, including we just approved financing for storm drainage down on Route 88 that was polluting our bay. And we've tackled that before, and we'll tackle it again. You know, I think some of the standards that we're adopting here in town, that we will be adopting, will be a lot more friendlier towards climate change. But I think the council has stepped up. We have a lot more work to do, but we're doing our part.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I too was proud when I watched the presentation from the Climate Action Committee on Monday, and I think a lot of credit needs to go to former Councilman Gruber, who stepped up and made that committee happen. They have some very ambitious goals, 80% retrofit of heat pumps and 80% EVs or PHEVs, excuse me. I think that's great. I think that's a good thing. I think we should have ambitious goals. Climate change is, in my view, the moral issue of my generation, and one that we can't fail at. We need to do everything that we can in order to do that. I myself am starting to take steps in that direction, getting rid of all my lawn equipment that has gas. I'm on the wait list to get an electric 150 that can't come soon enough, in my mind. But I think it's ambitious. And one of the best things about that presentation that I saw was that it was individualized, and people can look at that, they can go and they can pick that up and they can read and they can make sure how I can make a difference, how I can be part of the change that I want to see. And I think that is just super powerful and empowering to anyone. When you take a look at their landscaping presentation about how you can do that, and what are the individual things that you can do in terms of composting your food and growing your own food, and making smart decisions about where and when and how you travel. I think that's an incredibly important thing. I think I would fully support phase 2, and hopefully there's a phase 3 coming soon. I'd also like to look at the solar farm that went in. I think was restricted based on a small factor that CMP managed to weasel into our laws, and I think it can actually be expanded now. They allowed the megahertz is the wrong word, but the amount of electricity that can be generated from that can actually be increased. So I'd like to see if it's possible for us to grow that solar farm to even to provide a greater benefit. I think that's the first time I used all 2 minutes.
Yeah, and that was not as loud as I recall. The volume must be down. Yeah, okay. So we are at our final question before closing statements, and we will start this question with Mike. The question is about town facilities, and it is that the Prince Memorial Library has initiated a capital campaign to build an expansion. Do you support an expansion of the library, and do you feel that any other town facilities require capital improvements?
I supported the improvements we've already done on the library. I supported moving the old building, which is now part of the library. And that didn't come cheap to the town, but we preserved a very old schoolhouse, one where it used to be the police department where I started my career. And that cost us a lot of money. It was brick. Imagine moving a brick building. It wasn't easy. But we invested in it, and we're gonna have to invest in the library in the future. We have a police department that's shoved in the basement down here. We've got to, at some point, address moving them out. The other thing is, we need the space here in Town Hall. So at some point, we've got to find a home for them. We tackled the fire department. And when we built the fire department, we didn't build it for today. We built it for the future, so that the people that are sitting on this dais in the future won't have to deal for the next 50 years of a new fire department, because we planned ahead. We need to plan ahead downstairs, get that room. Our food pantry, we need a home for that, and whether that expands into the police department that's downstairs or not. But we serve a lot of residents, a lot of people who are food insecure, and we need to expand what we can hold down there. And so we've got to find a home, eventually a home for that, whether that's moving into the current space and moving the PD out. So we've got a couple capital projects that need it. But we've done a lot. I mean, look, the West Cumberland Community Center, we fixed that up. We've put our money where our mouth is, that when stuff needs to get, we do get to it. At the same time, making sure the taxes stay stable.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I can think of few more noble pursuits than building a bigger library and making it more accessible. I look out at the crowd now and I see my neighbor, who's one of the most vivacious readers that I've ever seen. So supporting that, I think, is a great idea. Perhaps only the single more nobler pursuit would be a school system, an additional school building that we need. So any capital improvements that the town council gets behind is going to have to meet with those priorities. And I think that when we talk about how we can manage our budgets and how we can manage our taxes, it has to be under that vein. I think the police absolutely deserve new systems, but I think we have to find a way in order to do that responsibly. I think our obligation to our kids is paramount, and finding a way for us to build that new school system, to build that building that can last for 50 or more years is paramount. I would love to see Prince Memorial Library get bigger and get better and expand. I think in due time it will, but I think we have to manage our priorities in order to meet our obligations.
Thank you. And Bob?
Well, the short answer is yes, we need to support the library. It's probably one of the hardest used facilities in our community. We're wearing it out, so there would be no standing in the way of that. And there are always going to be needs, for the community. But I think you have to balance that out by standing back and say, well, wait a second, before we build a new building, what about maintaining our roads? What about bringing water down to some of the areas of town that have poor wells or underperforming wells? Expansion of sewer, those are the things that I think that you have to take a look at and say, all right, which ones comes first? And, those are all hard choices, and they're all valid places to put our money. With that being said, we need to look where our funding comes from. We can build half a dozen new schools, but make sure there's kids to fill them, and make sure that before we build those schools, that surrounding communities have got their schools filled up too. Let's not build a building just for the sake of our single community or our single district, but using facilities that exist in other communities. And the same thing with the police department. Maybe the day has come where we need to talk about a collaborative police department of Cumberland, Falmouth, Yarmouth, and North Yarmouth, and a centralized police station. So all those services that we talk about that are nice to have need to be balanced with the needs to have.
Thank you. And we will wrap up our forum this evening with closing statements, 2 minutes each, and we will start with Brian.
Great. Thank you all for your time and attention. I'd like to also thank Mike and Bob. I learned a lot from you gentlemen, and I appreciate the discussion. I hope listening to our conversation here tonight, I made you all more aware of some of the wonderful opportunities and some of the difficult challenges that face our town. I'm excited to get to work for you. So I hope that you can find your way to vote for me before June 15th, on or before June 15th, excuse me. And together, we can move this town forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Bob?
I've certainly enjoyed serving my community, and it hasn't been just for the last 3 years. It's probably been for the last 40 years. And I will continue to do so in one capacity or another. I think that the challenges before us are a multitude, multiples. There's just lots of things to do. And anyways, I'm happy to be a part of that, and I believe I can bring a voice of support to whatever the endeavors are. Personally, I'm going to be working to provide housing relief for our immigration and asylum seekers. I'm going to be trying to provide housing relief for our needy families that don't have the income to support the $1 million, $500,000 homes that we see going on the market today. So housing is definitely something that I will continue to work on. Renewable energy, sustainable energy, agriculture are important avenues. We need to be looking at some different modes of transportation, perhaps a train station, opportunity for us to connect to the turnpike up in West Cumberland, and the development up there with the proposed roundabout. So lots of things to do, lots of things that I'm excited about and hope to continue to work on.
Thank you, and Mike.
Well, in closing, I'd like to thank everybody watching tonight or who'll be watching sometime over the next few weeks. Hopefully you're watching basketball right now or the Sox at 8. This is a crucial time for the town of Cumberland. Over the next couple of years, the council will be working with the SAD on the new school. The council will be conducting the process to replace our town manager. We'll be addressing the extremely tight housing market, redoing Route 100, preserving more open space, and finding more ways to attract good businesses to our town. Meanwhile, we still have the day-to-day business of managing the town. We have the ongoing task of maintaining the rural feel and great quality of life that Cumberland provides. We've done a lot, we got a lot ahead of us, and it's gonna take somebody with experience to keep the ship steered in the right direction. I said it when I first got elected, and I'll say it again now. We work for you. We are vested in this community, have a responsibility to all our citizens. Whether you've been here for years or are new to this community, from our youngest to our oldest residents, whether you're on the Forest Side, the center, or West Cumberland, we have a responsibility to each of you. I hope over the past 9 years, I've earned your trust and confidence in my role as your town councilor. I love my hometown, and besides being a husband and a father, serving on this council has been the greatest honor of my life. Thank you, and I hope I get your support in June.
Thank you. That concludes our forum this evening. I want to thank those of you who are here for being here to participate, and for those of you who are watching at home. And as Mike said, we'll be watching. I want to thank the candidates for your thoughtful responses and respect and professionalism and the civility that you've all demonstrated, which is not always the case in politics these days. But thank you all so much for being here, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Alyssa.
That was great. That was a lot of fun.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.